Sorry. I wanted to record for people who might not be present so they can have access to this later. Yes. So Alicia, are you starting?
Yes, I could first.
Excellent.
Good afternoon. My name is Alicia Smith. My major is accounting. I am a fourth year senior about to graduate December, thank God. And one thing I'm good at is being a mom. Very cheesy, I know. And when I'm stressed or anxious, I just either like to be still and breathe, or maybe try a distraction method, like be by myself and maybe watch a movie.
No, being a mom is hard, so shout out to you. I too am a mom, and I know the struggle.
Yeah,
okay.
So hard.
All right, who's up next? She volunteered. I don't want to have to volunteer you. Also, I'm gonna grab.
I'll go next.
All right.
Hi, my name is Tanisha Madama. My major is Law and Criminal Justice. This is my second year here at UB. Something I'm good at is dancing and modeling. And what I do to de-stress is I go to the gym and listen to music.
Okay, I too am team gym. All right, good job. Who is up next?
I can go next. My name is Crystal. My major is media journalism, and I'm in my second year, first semester. Yeah. One thing I'm good at is drawing, I guess. And what I do to de-stress, I just listen to music.
All right, who's up next?
I'll go.
Excellent.
My name is Tennille Adderley. I'm a social work major. I'm in my last year. One thing I'm good at is playing sports. And one thing I do to relieve stress is workout.
I'm in class. Awesome. Okay, who's up next?
I can go next. My name is Destiny Neely. I'm majoring in biology with chemistry. This is my first year at UB, so I'm a freshman. One thing I'm good at is dancing, I should say. And what I do to de-stress, I usually just breathe or pray, well, both. And then I just seclude myself from my surroundings and be alone. Yeah.
Who's up next?
My name is Azaria Brown. My major is biochemistry. This is my first year at UB. I'm good at sports, and I listen to music to de-stress.
What was your major?
Biochemistry.
Awesome. I'm taking notes, sorry. All right, who's up next?
My name is Jamie Ambrista. My major is psychology. This is my second year, and I'm good at reading. And what I do to relieve stress is distance myself and pray.
I'll go next.
What are you good at?
I'm sorry.
Reading and
You're good at reading?
in a way, and sleeping. I feel as if I'm good at it.
You're good at sleeping?
Yes, ma'am.
That's very funny. Okay. Adria or Adria? Adria?
You got it, Adria.
Adria.
Hi, my name is Adria Albury. I am a psychology major. I am a first year student, so I'm a freshman. I
think that I'm good at turning my emotions on and off. Weird as it sounds. And to de stress, I usually sing gospel music, preferably.
Y'all are so wholesome. Okay. Who's up next?
I'll go next. My name is Sharika Marcellus. I'm a biochem major. This is my second year at UV. One thing that I'm good at is seeing the good in people, I guess. One thing I do to de-stress is watching funny videos.
Okay. Do you spend endless hours on YouTube and or TikTok?
Oh, I don't do TikTok, but I do spend endless hours on YouTube.
Fair enough. All right. Who's up next?
I'll go.
Okay.
My name is Tamabo. My major is CIS. This is my first year. What I'm good at, I'm good at basketball, I think. And the way to de-stress is play video games.
Okay. Who's up next?
Hello, my name is Darani Kamaki. I'm majoring in biology with chemistry, and this is my first year. I like reading and solving word puzzles. And when I'm stressed, I use myself like mini pep talks or listen to music.
Okay. Not too bad. All right. I've never seen Darenika spelled that way, by the way. All right. Who's up next?
I can go.
Awesome.
Hi, my name is Shania. My major is tourism. This is my third year, so I'm a junior. What I do to de-stress? Oh, I like to eat, or I'd like take a nap, or yeah, I would scroll on TikTok until I fall asleep. That's how I de-stress. Oh, I do yoga. So yeah.
And what are you good at?
A lot of things. I don't know what I'm not good at. Period.
Pardon me. Okay, cool. Good at everything. I'm here for it. Okay, who's up next?
You can go next. So my name is Rashay Simonette. My major is psychology. I would say this is my first year in psychology, but my second year or third year at UB, because I switched majors from nursing to psychology.
Okay.
What I'm good at, to be honest, it's kind of sad, but I have no idea because my time is so consumed with work, school, and kids that I have lost myself amongst all of that.
Okay.
So
we're gonna work on that.
Yeah. That being said, I do get stressed and anxious pretty often with my hectic schedule. What I do to de-stress? Oh, child. Try and get some sleep. That's the only thing I could say. Just try and get some sleep and sleep it off.
You can sleep when you're anxious?
No, not really. That's why I said try.
Okay, it's your attempt. Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Who's up next?
I can go.
Okay.
My name is Steve Bowe. My major is psychology. When I stress, I guess I work out, play games, or exercise. And I good at karate. I'm a red belt.
Okay. What's your classification?
Sorry, repeat that.
What's your classification? What year are you?
Oh, just my second year.
All right, who's up next? I lost count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 11, 12, 13, 14. That's 14. I know there's more than 14 people in here. There's
Okay.
23 people in here. Thank you.
My name is Daria Hall. My major is biochemistry. I am in my 3rd year. One thing I'm good at is chemistry, and something I'm you said distress?
Yeah, what you do to de-stress.
I listen to music, I play video games, and I watch YouTube videos.
Okay. Who's up next?
I'll go. My name is Austin Taylor. My major is biochem. I good at drawing, and I guess that's it. When I want to be stressed, I just read and talk trash.
Same. What's your classification?
This is my first year.
Okay. Who's up next? Can you guys hear me chewing?
Not really.
I'm
You
mute.
good.
Okay.
You good.
Okay.
You covered it. My name's Akeem Bethel. My major is social work. I'm in my 4th year. I'm good at me no, I got all this time to think of this. I'm good at I can skate. I'm good at skating. I'm good at doing things outside.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm cool. I'm joking. and I distress by listening to music and music.
Okay. All right. Who's next? Go. Hip Hop Harry? No. Sorry. Are y'all a Hip Hop Harry generation? I have no idea how old people are. No.
I know of Hip Hop Harry.
I was going with
I used to watch it.
Okay, so y'all are old enough to have watched Hip Hop Harry.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
watched it.
Yeah.
I never watched that before in my life. The only thing I know about that is when they go, 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 go. Who's next?
Right.
Are you mess with TikTok?
I was doing it. Did you see
That's
me?
all I
Who's
know.
next? Go,
No, I was
go,
singing
go.
with you. I was singing with you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Okay. Who's next? I embarrass my children, by the way.
I guess I'll go next.
Thank you.
My name is Regina Ramburin. I'm a biochem major. This is my, what year is this? This is my 2nd year. I'm a sophomore. Things I do to de-stress are either go to the beach until my skin is wrinkly, or I go sleep or listen to instrumentals of music or rain. And I love animals. Things I'm good at is animal care and nails, as well as sleeping and dancing.
Very good. That person's very funny. Okay. Who is next? You know we can see you, right? Who has not gone? No. Sasha, I can see you. Anicia. Anisha? Here, Monet, we can see you.
Hi, my name's Sasha Thompson. I'm a biochem major, and I'm a freshman. I'm not really sure what I'm good at, hence why it took so long. So I was thinking about it, but What was the last question again?
How do you de-stress?
Oh, right. I de-stress. Well, sometimes I sleep or eat or distract myself, I guess I'd say.
Okay. Thank you, Sasha. All right, who else is here?
My name is Anicia Blatch. I'm a psychology major, first year. I'm good at singing and just all things art related, painting, drawing, all that stuff. And to de-stress, I watch a lot of my comfort shows, like things I watched when I was smaller.
I do that too. I'm currently watching Murder, She Wrote, so it's just an idea of how old I am.
I've never heard of that show.
I don't want to
laugh.
talk about it.
Oh my goodness. I mean, I ain't trying to show my feet up, but I know.
Wait, yeah, isn't that old? About the white woman, the old white woman?
Define old, because you know, age ain't nothing but a number.
Okay,
Well, the
I'm
dagger to my
29.
heart.
If I could say, I feel old, so I feel like I could say it's old. Is that old? I feel like my Grammy used to watch that.
That might be
Lord
true.
have mercy.
Yeah.
Because
You'd probably be watching it
from
for
the
the
80s.
nostalgia.
You should have said girly man. Or you should have said Victoria, so they
one
didn't
of those
come for
good
you.
shows that are timeless.
They coming for you.
I was going to say, because iCarly is definitely like my kids watched iCarly. I grew up watching Murder, She Wrote, like it came on Sundays. And so that's my comfort show. I was an actual child when it came on. So thank you for making me feel 104. I feel old. But it is a comfort show, but it's one of those old shows where like the mystery is always solved and you know who the bad people are because they look like bad people. There are no plot twists. During this COVID time, I've been using it to de-stress because it's predictable, it's comfortable, it's not going to stress me out. That's my rationale. But yes, apparently I'm 105. Thank you very much.
Matlock is one of them good ones too, man.
Correct. And if I could find a link for Matlock, I too shall watch. Like I will also watch that. I've been trying to find a link. So if you know something,
Well, you don't have to feel old because I remember the show, as well as I think Walker Texas Ranger used to be on around that time as well.
Correct.
So
all of that.
And I'm
Yes.
young
Heat of the
enough. So
night, all of that.
you're
Yes.
probably my age then. Yeah.
Shout out to you. Thank you. I feel much better. I appreciate that. All right, who's up next?
You're welcome.
Hello, my name is Monet Sims. My major is biology with chemistry. This is my first year. Something I'm good at is sports, I guess, and I'm good at helping people. And ways that I de-stress are baking and watching crime videos and documentaries.
Hey. I apologize in advance for all of the noise that you might hear. Okay, I think that's, wait, Joshua, I think you're the only person. And Crystal? Have I written Crystal down?
Okay. My name is Joshua McKenzie. I am a mechanical engineering technology major.
Wait, that's a thing? Okay, that's very fancy. Mechanical.
Okay. This is my second year. One thing I'm good at is sleeping. And what I do to de-stress is play video games.
Awesome. Okay, mechanical engineering technology. Wow. Okay, that's very fancy. Yes. All right. And I think we just have one more person. I don't remember. Yes, we did have Denisha. So there's just, is it Crystal? I don't remember writing Crystal.
I already.
Nope, I did. Yeah, you were up top. Awesome. Okay, so I think that is everybody. All right, see? Nice to get to know you a little bit. All right, so tell me, how far are you actually on track for the semester? Because I'm going by the syllabus that Dr. Hall Campbell Dean shared with me. And I just want to make sure A, it was the same one, and B, you guys are actually on track for the semester. Because I know I saw on the syllabus there's a test coming up. I want to make sure, so we're going to do a little bit of review today before we jump into some things. And then I will also explain to you what we're going to be doing every single class, like the type of class activities. I don't have like the rubrics or the outlines for you as yet, but I just want to kind of like have a conversation about what those will be. Okay.
So we were supposed to just be starting chapter 2 because we were a little behind anyway, because I was a little mixed up at the beginning of the semester with the lecturer. So we were just going to chapter 2.
Oh, wait, hold on. Were you going in sequence? Wait, do you have a copy of your old syllabus?
Yes, we do.
Yes.
Okay, because according to this, we should be moving on to, what order were you going in? Can somebody, do you have it as a PDF or, do you have it as like a shared file, or can somebody email it to me? So send me a link or send me an email really quickly.
Okay, I'll try and email it to you.
Okay. Ooh, wait, where's my computer? I said, where's my computer, y'all? What is this? I'm not sharing screen, so I should be able to.
I just sent the one we got.
Okay. Where's my Zoom? Oh, here we go. Okay, checking my email. All right, I just want to cross-reference what I have and what you guys have. Because according to the timeline that I have, what is happening? Why are you doing this to me today? I really don't have the emotional capacity for this nonsense. Okay, where's my email? Right here. Ah, is that what you wanted from me? Is that the right answer? Yes, please stay signed in. Okay, thank you. Oh. Okay, tests, assignments. Oh, so you have no, okay. So you do have a quiz. This is a little bit different. Is this chapter 2? So this is very, very different from the one that I do have. Have you, well, the order and the topics that are actually covered are a little bit different. So you've gone over psychology as a natural science so far. Is that it?
Yes.
That's it. So nothing else. All right, so what is this called? Your syllabus is a bit of a contract, but it's also super, super loose. So I'm just gonna ask really quickly if you guys mind that I change the content of this. Like the number of chapters won't change. Your final exam is still worth 20%, I think. Your tests still 15%. Yeah, so everything else is essentially the same because nothing else is online. So yeah, nothing else is outlined. So the one that I have looks a lot like this, but it's not identical to it. So are there any issues with me? Ooh. So that means you also haven't done stats. Huh. Okay, quick question, like honestly, because I need to read the room. How many of you, show of hands, like click the actual handy button. How many of you actually have the textbook for this course? Okay, then. Okay. So a decent number of you have the textbook for this course. Okay, you can put your hands down. All right, so I'm gonna share with you I'm gonna put the hyperlink for the slide that's kind of like the landing page for this class. I'm also going to put it, I'm in the process of updating the Moodle for this class. So it will be accessible to you then. I think I've already put it in this link. Boom. So that's the Google slide. That's the landing page for this class. So every new class that we have is going to be all of the course notes or everything that you need to know for that class, all of the information is going to be grounded in there. When this course, when this class is done downloading from Zoom, I will also put this in there, all right? So you will have a hyperlink to the cloud recording of this class, all right? So since I wanted to make sure that we were grounded in a couple of things, the first thing I'm actually going to do is go back a little bit, and I'm just going to share a lecture video on psychology as a natural science. So it is in part, and then it's going to be like what I thought was going to be like a quickie review on statistics is actually going to end up being a full lesson since we are not on track of sorts. So we're going to figure that out just a little bit. So I'm going to have to modify a couple of things just to make sure that we catch up. All right. Before I do that, sorry, let me share screen so you can see the course slides. Here, here, and there's Zoom. Sharing my screen really quickly. Okay, so this is essentially, Shania, is your hand back up or did you never put it down?
I never put it down. I'll put it down.
Okay. All right, so this is essentially, again, the landing page for this course. Every single time we have a class, every week of class, I will add more and more materials to this landing page. All of the documents or all of the little icons in here are essentially clickable. So right here is a copy of the course syllabus. I did not mean to open it just now, but as you can see, it shows you the course syllabus. So I'll go over that really quickly with you since it decided that it's going to open. So it just has a bit of my information. Again, has essentially the same bit of information as your previous syllabus. Only thing, it just kind of like goes into greater detail about a couple of things. Like I mentioned, your tests and your 2 mid-course tests and your final exam are still 50%. So that hasn't changed at all. Your oral and written assignments, that distribution hasn't changed at all either. Like I said, I'm going to have to recalibrate to figure out the distribution of assignments so that we can A, cover the material that's been missed, and B, catch up a little bit. Where it says bonus class assignments, those are going to be, so some of the assignments that you get will account for your written and or oral assignments, and some of them will be extra credit. I will notify you which is which, since again, we are technically something like 3 weeks behind. So I'll let you know what that combination thereof will be. So those bonus assignments or class assignments, which may be, like I said, it may be a written grade, an oral assignment grade, or it might just be a bonus assignment. I will notify you before the assignment of what category it actually falls into, so you can know how it will be graded. Every single week in your classes, sorry, I have my notes here somewhere. You will be separated into 4 groups, and each of your groups will be required to do a thing based on what our topic and our outcomes are for that particular chapter, all right? So one group, and this will shuffle, I will probably use, I'm gonna use breakout rooms in Google in order to separate you when we break out into these sessions so that you know who it is that you're working with. So we'll still be in class, but you'll be separated into separate groups, and I'll be able to bounce around to your individual groups to support you, answer any questions that you have. But one of your groups is going to make an infograph. So something like a program like Canva is super helpful with that, where you create a visualization of the key points of that lesson. Another group is going to make a KWL chart, which is a what do you know, what do you want to know, and what you've learned. I'm going to have an outline of like the grading requirements for each of these activities so that you're not working very blindly about what it is. So a KWL chart is literally just that. One column is like, what do you know about this topic already? The middle chart is like, what do you want to know? And the last one is like, what you've learned based on your reading. So the distinction between what you know and what you've learned is kind of like, what was your general information about this before you started studying it? And then what you've learned is essentially what it is that you know based on your studies. What do you want to know? Those kinds of questions, you are going to kind of like create them based on your intersecting your knowledge. So for example, this week we were supposed to be moving on to learning and like the intersection of learning and psychology. So looking at a concept like classical conditioning, if that's something we were learning about, you may ask about like a particular, for example, like a teaching strategy, and ask yourself like, what category does training my dog, what kind of psychology is involved in training my dog? Stuff like that. You may ask those kinds of questions, all right? So they're very inquiry based, but I want to see your level of curiosity. And then another group is going to make a lesson study quiz. Again, so you're gonna have to go through the material. Sorry. So you're gonna have to go through the material and you're going to create quiz questions to be able to support your fellow classmates in their studying. So like questions that after you've read through the materials, things you need to know, and then you're also going to provide the answer key for your quiz. And then the last group is going to make a class notes wiki. So you've seen a Wikipedia page. There's a program called
It's not as loud as you think.
Oh, isn't it? Okay, thank you. Yes, it's very annoying. Yeah, so you'll make a class wiki, which is kind of like a Wikipedia style page that's just going to have like summaries, like a class summary or a summary of your notes essentially, but on a Wikipedia style page. All of these materials that you'll be creating, and again, you're going to be doing them in groups. A part of it is to get you to engage and interact with your textbook. Because I know if I just say read something, you're going to read it, you're going to glance over it, but I really want you to focus on what it is that you're understanding, and sometimes interacting with that in multiple ways is super helpful to that. So that's why I'm going to have you interact in this way, so that when you're reading, you're not reading for naught, you're actually working toward a very specific goal. Because I want you to read and I want you to act with some sort of intention. I know what it is like to be a student, and I know how lazy we can be about our reading. So I'm trying to help you strategize and be successful in your reading. Does that make sense? So what that means is it's going to feel like work. It's going to feel like work. It's going to feel like you have a lot of work to do. But what I will tell you is most of these assignments, we will be doing them within the class period. So, because again, I am a big advocate of experiential learning. So I don't want to just be talking at you for an extensive amount of time. So there's going to be a point in the class like where either I'll introduce a lesson, or it'll be the second part of, the chapter. We'll stick a pin from these conversations. We'll go into our breakout rooms. You'll work on those activities, and then we'll come back together and you will kind of like present them to each other. And so that's going to be one of the contributing parts of your oral presentation, because like not every group will present what it is that they have worked on during that time. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Excellent.
Yes, ma'am.
I was like, silence also gives consent. So if you don't say anything, I will think that means thumbs up. All right. All right, that being said, we are going to jump into, again, a learning video. It is about 15 minutes, and it's just like a reflection of what you would have gone over so far, which is learning as, psychology as a science. I apologize for the 17,000 tabs that I have open. All right, so as I mentioned, this is the landing page, this right here. If you click here, it takes you to the link to the Zoom. Right here, this is the first video that we're going to watch. This was supposed to be, like I said, a crash course in statistics. We're still going to watch that video, but instead of it being a reflection video, it's going to be more of an introductory video. I'm still compiling all of the resources for this course. Like I still have to get all of the lecture notes. So I was definitely not prepared to pivot right now. So we're definitely going to have to come back to the statistics lesson on this one. So on that note, we are going to jump into this video. I think I have to take out my AirPods for you to hear. Okay, give me 1 second to remove my AirPods. I think that's how that works.
Welcome to the first chapter in our general psychology course. As you can see, today we're going to discuss the science of psychology. Now in this first installment, we're going to look at just how do we define what psychology is, and we'll look at a little bit of the history of psych. All right, so many of you watching this video have heard the word psychology, and you probably think of images about people in therapy, men and women laying on couches telling people their problems. That's sort of a counseling version of this word. But psychology is a ever-encompassing scientific term that applies to how we study behavior. And even more specifically, not just behavior, but how we study mental processes. Now, behavior is what you do. So if I see you walk up to a stranger, you punch them in the face, walk away, I have questions about that. Do that. So I'm asking, why did that happen? Psychologists also want to know what's happening upstairs, so to speak. So when we say mental processes, we mean what happened in your brain. When you walked up to that person, what were you thinking? What elicited that response inside? How did your brain cobble together the numerous neural impulses, ideas, attitudes, emotions, and ultimately strike onto that behavior? That is what psychology hopes to accomplish. And let's be fair, it's an incredibly difficult task. You could argue that psychology is one of the, if not the most difficult sciences, because we have chosen to study the mind, the most complicated thing we've discovered in the known universe thus far. Now, psychology, like any science, has 4 goals, 4 things it hopes to accomplish by studying what it studies. And you can apply these 4 goals, again, to any scientific pursuit that interests you. The first goal is to describe, to at least give phenomenon names. That's why we go looking into the unknown so that we can find something. For example, when we talk about the brain, we're going to see different areas of the brain seem to be responsible for different behaviors, different perceptions, different abilities. Well, we first discovered that through both research and accidents, and we're able to give these areas names. We're describing them. Or if you go to a doctor and the doctor says you have bipolar disorder 1, that's a name. That name helps us to describe the phenomenon that we're seeing, and it makes discussing it and diagnosing it much easier. But it's not enough to give something the name, to call something a tree, to call something a spider, to call something a phobia, to call something a neuron. We have to then explain what that means. So if a doctor says you have bipolar disorder, that needs to have an explanation. Here is what that disorder is. Here is what we mean, right? Now, the reason why we want to explain things is simply not because we like writing textbooks and we want information in some sort of volume tucked away on a shelf. We want to explain how the world works because we want to use this information. And that's the third goal of psychology, to be able to look at the variables in front of us and then predict what's going to happen. So let's go back to that example of you walking up and hitting someone. If I saw you walking towards me and I see your face is red and your mouth is frowning and your body is shaking and your posture is upright and your chest moving toward, I should be able to use those signs to possibly predict your behavior is going to be. Or to use it in a more broad application, let's say you're in education and you have a kid in your kindergarten class who's just joined, and you happen to know that this kid's parents are going through a divorce. Well, by having that information, you might be able to predict some behavioral issues that will come from this child. But at the end of the day, it's not just about predicting, it's about doing something with that prediction. And that's the final goal of psychology, to control behavior. So for example, if you predict this child is going to have some behavioral problems, maybe you can set up class or work with this kid or talk to this child to help control those problems, to keep them from happening, or at least mitigate them to a certain extent. So these are our 4 goals. And throughout this course, if you ever ask, well, why do we study this? Even if it doesn't interest you, realize we believe there's an application, a way to use this information to help us to make our lives better. Now, throughout this course, we're going to look at different types of research, and we're going to bring to the table our own inherent biases. We believe and feel the world works in certain ways because we've lived in this world, and that's what's happened to us. But for you to be successful, not only in this class, but I'm going to argue in life in general, we need to learn to think like scientists, like in this case, psychologists being our frame of reference. And all that means is learning to embrace the concept of critical thinking. Critical thinking is simply the process of when someone produces a claim to you, an important statement of this is how the world is. This is why things happen. We have to stop that initial reaction, that gut reaction to where we say it feels right or it feels wrong. And instead, despite what we want to be true or not, take a step back and say, okay, here's the claim. Let's find evidence. Or if you brought me this claim, you present me the evidence to support this. And see, what tends to happen is we use our personal experiences. Make sure that everyone has a right to their opinion. That's it mean your opinion is valid. Nor does it mean my opinion is valid. They're just that, opinions. They're ideas. An opinion isn't the same as actually creating an argumentative response or a theory or using a word that says, here is why we do what we do. Instead, most of us just create the world with our emotions, and that's fine for day-to-day living. But as we're going to see throughout this class, I'm going to research that, and some of this has been around for decades, that we know this is not how the world works to tell us this is how the world works. We'll see that especially with things like mental illness, with child development, things that we take for granted that we just know why things happen. So I want you to, if you're not already practicing this in your life, at least in this course, learn and develop this idea of being a critical thinker. And that implies you should use that on me, right? It's my job to present evidence to you. And a lot of this, of course, is coming from the author of your text and a few other sources where they have cited all their different references. But anytime someone tells you something about the world, we need to think critically. Things that I still hear today, and I'm telling you before I even start this list, nothing on this list is correct. It's not true, but I still hear. Has anyone ever told you use 10% of your brains? It's a common statement. I see it in movies, TV shows. I even hear it occasionally on a few trained medical professionals, not neurologists. It's simply untrue. We use all of our brain, okay? Yes, you can make your brain faster. You can make it process better. You can strengthen those connections. We can learn to sort of open up that neural potential, but you are using your whole brain. And in our next chapter, when we talk about how the brain works, I'm going to show you the proportion of oxygen and matter that your brain uses, and you'll see, yeah, we use it all. Next on this list, you probably heard about the lie detector test. There is no such thing. We have never created an instrument that can accurately predict if someone is telling a lie or telling the truth. We do have what's called a polygraph test, but what that measures is your physical response to stress, such as sweat levels, such as heart rate and respiration. And we use those clues to infer that you might be telling a lie, but it does not actually test it. That's why polygraph tests are not admissible in a court of law. Many of you have grown up hearing, if nothing else, in popular music, that opposites attract. And movies and TV like to show us people coming together who have nothing in common. And I'm telling you now, and we'll explore this more in social psychology, it's not true. The vast majority of people we are drawn to, the people we're attracted to, and I don't just mean relationships like dating, I mean your friends, your family, the people you want to spend time to, you have more in common than you do not in common. And the people who are closest to you, you have the most in common with. Here's one that I still hear, again, even from some medical professionals, and that's all the full moon's out, so that explains why there's more crime or more, quote, crazy things happening. There is no evidence that full moons have any change in the behavior of individuals. We do see that on full moons are more likely to pay attention to things like that. And because we grew up hearing that, we go, oh, must be a full moon. The truth is, if we had been grown up hearing, well, half moons create crazy people, then we would say, oh, look, it's a half moon that explains the crazy stuff. I promise, we've done this research. It doesn't work out. People will say, oh, the gravity of the moon affects the tides. And since you're made of water, the gravity of the moon affects you somehow. that just doesn't work. Sorry. To put in perspective, if a fly were to land on your arm right now, that fly is producing more gravitational pull on you than the moon is. So that's not where mental illness comes from. And last but not least, this is more of a legal thing. You've heard about people pleading insanity and then, they get away with crimes. I'll talk more about this in our mental health chapter, but no, it's simply not true. It's less than 1% of criminals even put the defense on the table. Only 1 in 4 of those are found not guilty by reason of insanity. And if you are found insane by the courts, you are still going to spend time in a facility away from the populace. All right. So not what, don't believe what TV tells you necessarily. So it's up to us to learn to be skeptical, to even those things mom and dad have taught us that teachers and pastors and cousins and TV hosts and talk show hosts, we have to learn to take a step back and say, all right, I know we believe this because we've just always heard it, but is it true? Does the evidence actually stand up to scrutiny? That's what's going to make us be able to not only learn more about our world, but just live in it successfully. So coming back to psychology as a discipline, what do psychologists actually study? Well, what we study, of course, is human behavior, though we will also use other animal behaviors, and we'll get to that as well. But I put this graph on the screen because I thought you might be interested in seeing sort of what are the different areas, the different fields of psychology that we study. You can see here, there's a large percentage that is sort of treating people with problems, clinical psychology, private practice, counseling, things like that, school psychology. Many of us are in academia. That means we teach and we do research. Though you can see there's a slice of industrial. In the last few decades, big companies, big corporations are hiring psychologists to, produce better workers, to understand how to make things better working environments, things like that. So there's many, many fields. And in another video, we'll get to some of those fields, but I just wanted to kind of give you an idea of what's happening there. So we're going to take a break here. And when we come back, I'm going to visit sort of the history of psychology, look at some of the men and women who maybe got the ball rolling, as I mentioned before. So see you next time.
Okay, there's no part 2 of that, just so you know. But I just wanted to, nope, stop. Well, I wanted to be able to just review a little bit about what you may have covered so far. So is any of that new to you guys? Does that, wait, where are we? Sorry, I'm trying to find my Zoom again. I promise I know how to use a computer. Why is my Zoom missing? Stop share. There we go. Is any of that new to you guys, or is that in line with what you've reviewed so far? So someone has to respond, since I have no idea.
It's sort of in line, sort of new, kind of borderline on both sides.
Okay, so help me, because this chapters that comes with the quiz, and so I don't want you to just be completely out of left field. Can you tell me about some things that you've covered conceptually? We talked about the relationship between psychology as a science, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so we did the introduction to psychology.
Okay, so in general, did you talk about theories? And
Yes,
some
we
of,
talked about.
okay, so some of the general theories and some of the theorists.
Yes.
Excellent. All right. Anything else?
Theory. And you guys are also using the 12th edition of this textbook?
I believe it's the 11th.
You're using the 11th edition. Okay. All right, I just want to make sure you guys are, because I'm using the 12th edition and there are sometimes some updates and I don't want you to be left out of left field. So we talked about critical thinking, and we talked about critical thinking as the examination of information in order to make judgments. No?
Yes, we talked
Yes,
about
we
Okay.
talked about the scientific method. We talked about behaviorism. That's all I can remember right now.
Okay. I'm just keeping notes to make sure I don't, like I said, throw you guys out of there. And you talked about fields of psychology, developmental, physiological, experimental, personality, clinical and counseling, and industrial and organizational. So
yes.
field. Okay.
And the enduring issues as well.
Okay. And human diversity. No. Okay. Have you gotten as far as research methods? No.
I feel like we had a slide on that with surveys.
Right. Observations, case studies.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Excellent. Okay. So you didn't get into statistics yet?
No.
No. Okay. So that's where I'm gonna jump into just a little bit. I'm gonna start you off with a video, and then we're gonna talk about statistics just a little bit. Is everybody familiar with the concept of statistics? At some point,
Yes.
Okay, so psychology majors, definitely those in biochem, social research, statistics is a course that will definitely come across your table, and the level of research that you get into will distinguish like how deeply you delve into that. So again, show you a quick video and then we'll talk about that, okay? I'm trying to multitask on my screen while not confusing you guys. All right. Crash. You can't hear that, right?
Hear what exactly?
No, sorry. Taking out my AirPods again. So I do apologize if this moves a little fast. When I originally assigned this or selected this video, it was because I was under the impression that you'd already done this chapter. So instead of it being a bit of a summary, it's going to just kind of like be an introductory video while I simultaneously try and pull up this slide. Okay, share screen.
Welcome to a world of probabilities, paradoxes, and hi, I'm Adrienne Hill, and this is Crash Course Statistics. Welcome to a world of probabilities, paradoxes, and p-values. There will be games and thought experiments and coin flipping. A lot of coin flipping. Statisticians love to talk about coin flipping. By the time we finish the course, you'll know why we use statistics and how, and what questions you ought to be asking when you run across statistics in the world, which is all the time. Statistics can help you make a guess whether or not you're going to be accepted to Harvard. Marketers use them to sell us gold lame pants. Netflix uses stats to predict what show we might want to watch next. You use statistics when you look at the weather forecast and decide what to wear, dress or jeans. Policymakers use them to decide decide whether or not to invest in more early childhood education, whether or not to spend more on mental health services. Statistics is all about making sense of data and figuring out how to put that information to use. Today, we're going to answer the question, what is statistics? The legend says that during a late 1920s English tea at Cambridge, a woman claimed that a cup of tea with milk added last tasted different than a tea where the milk was added first. The brilliant minds of the day immediately began to think of ways to test her claim. They organized 8 cups of tea in all sorts of patterns to see if she really could tell the difference between the milk first and the tea first cups. But even after they had seen her guesses, how could they really decide? Because she'd get about half the cups right just by randomly guessing either milk first or tea first. And even if she really could tell the difference, it's completely possible that she would miss a cup or two. So how could you tell if this woman was actually a tea savant? What's the line between lucky tea guesser and tea super taster? As fate would have it, future super statistician and part-time potato scientist Ronald A. Fisher was in attendance. During his lifetime, Fisher began work that set the stage for a large portion of statistics, which is the focus of this series. These statistics can help us make decisions in uncertain situations, tea taste tests and beyond. Fisher's insights into experimental design helped turn statistics into its own scientific discipline. And although Fisher didn't publish results of the tea test, the story has it the woman sorted all the teacups correctly. Just in case you were curious. At this point, it's worth mentioning that there are 2 related but separate meanings of the word statistics. We can refer to the field of statistics, which is the study and practice of collecting and analyzing data. And we can talk about statistics as in facts about or summaries of data. To answer the question, what is statistics? We should first ask the question, what can statistics do? Let's say you wake up at your desk after studying for finals with a cheeseburger wrapper stuck here. And you wonder, why do I eat this stuff? Is fast food controlling my life? But then you tell yourself, no, it's just super convenient. But you're worried. You're thinking about how great it is that McDonald's serves breakfast all day right now. But maybe that's normal, right? I mean, finals are this week. So you Google the question fast food consumption and you find the results of a fast food survey. The first thing you might do is start asking questions that interest you. For example, you could ask, why do people eat fast food? Do people eat more fast food on the weekend than on weekdays? Does eating fast food stress me out? Now that we have some interesting questions, we need to ask ourselves an even more important one. Can questions like these be answered by statistics? Like I mentioned earlier, statistics are tools for us to use, but they can't do all the heavy lifting. To answer the question about why people eat fast food, you can ask them to fill out a questionnaire, but you can't know whether their answers truly represent what they're thinking. Maybe they answer dishonestly because they don't want to admit that they scarf McDonald's because they're too tired to cook dinner, or because they're ashamed to admit they think Del Taco is delicious, or because none of the given answers represented their reasons, or they may not really know why they eat fast food. Armed with the results of the survey, you could tell that the most common reason that people reported eating fast food was convenience, or that the average number of meals they eat out in a week is 5. But you're not truly measuring why people eat so much fast food. You're measuring what we call a proxy, something that is related to what we want to measure, but isn't exactly what we want to measure. To answer whether people eat more fast food on the weekends, or whether eating it more than twice a week increases stress, we'd not only need to know how much people are eating fast food, which our questionnaire asked, but also which days they eat it. And we need an additional measure of stress. You can use statistics to give a good answer about whether you're going through the drive-through more on the weekend. But even the question of whether eating fast food is associated with higher levels of stress is hard to answer directly. What is stress and how can we measure it? And are people eating fast food because they're stressed, or does eating all those calories make them stressed? It's often the case that some of the most interesting questions are the ones that can't be answered by statistics, like why people eat fast food. Instead, we find questions that we can answer, like whether people who eat fast food often work more than 80 hours a week. The tools we use to answer these questions are statistics plural, and there are 2 main types, descriptive and inferential. Descriptive statistics describe what the data show. Descriptive statistics usually include things like where the middle of the data is, what statisticians call measures of central tendency, and measures of how spread out the data are. They take huge amounts of information that may not make much intuitive sense to us and compress and summarize them to hopefully hopefully give us more useful information. Let's go to the thought bubble. You've been working for 2 years in the local waffle factory. Day in and day out, you create the golden browniest, tastiest frozen waffles ever created. The holes are perfectly spaced, screaming for syrup. And now you want a raise. You deserve a raise. No one can make a waffle as well as you can. But how much do you ask for? An extra $1,000? An extra $5,000? You know you're valuable, but have no idea what other waffle makers get paid. So you dig around online and find there's an entire subreddit devoted to waffle makers. And someone, username Waffle Leaks, has posted a spreadsheet of waffle makers' salaries. Now, with a quick glance at this huge list of numbers, you can see whether the woman who works at a similar job at the rival frozen waffle company makes more than you. You can see how much more you're making than the new guy who's just now learning to mix batter. But you still don't know much about the paychecks of your waffle company as a whole, or the industry, because it turns out there are thousands of waffle makers out there, and all you see is a list with data points, not patterns that can help you learn more about how much you might be able to convince the boss to pay you. Here is where descriptive statistics come in. You could calculate the average salary at your company, as well as how spread out everyone's salaries are around that average. You'd be able to see whether the CEO's paychecks are relatively close to the entry-level batter makers or incredibly far away, and how your salary compares to both of their salaries. You could calculate the average salary of everyone in the industry with your job title and see the high and low end of that pay. And then, armed with those descriptive statistics, you could confidently walk into the waffle boss's office and demand to be paid for your talents. Thanks, Thought Bubble. While descriptive statistics can be great, they only tell us the basics. Clever namers, those statisticians. Inferential statistics allow us to make conclusions that extend beyond the data we have in hand. Imagine you have a candy barrel full of saltwater taffy. Some pink, some white, some yellow. If you wanted to know how many of each color you have, you could count them, one by one by one. That'd give you a set of descriptive statistics. But who has time for all that candy counting? Or you could grab a giant handful of taffy and count just those you've pulled out, which would be using descriptive statistics. If your candy was, in fact, mixed pretty evenly throughout the barrel and you got a big enough handful, you could use inferential statistics on that sample to estimate the content of the entire taffy stash. We ask inferential statistics to do all sorts of much more complicated work for us. Inferential statistics lets us test an idea or hypothesis, like answering whether people in the US under the age of 30 eat more fast food than people over 30. We don't survey every person to answer that question. Let's say someone tells you that their new brain vitamin, SmartyVite, improves your IQ. Do you rush out and buy it? What if they told you that the average IQ increase for Group A, 20 people who took SmartyVite for a month, was 2 IQ points, and the average IQ increase for Group B, 20 people who took nothing, was 1 IQ point? How about now? Still not sure? It's a pretty small difference, right? Inferential statistics give you the ability to test how likely it is that the two populations we sampled actually have different IQ increases. However, it's up to you as an individual to decide whether that's convincing or not. And don't be alarmed if the bar you set isn't the same in every situation. It's entirely okay to have different standards for the questions, does my cat like Fancy Feast more than Meow Mix versus does this drug cure lung cancer? It might take more evidence to convince you to take a new, supposedly cancer-curing drug than to switch cat food brands. It should take more evidence to convince you to take a new, supposedly cancer-curing drug than to switch cat food brands. With inferential tests, there will always be some degree of uncertainty, since it can only tell you how likely something is or is not. Your job is to take that information and use it to make a decision despite that uncertainty. If statistics were a superhero, its call would be uncertainty, and its tagline would be, when you don't know for sure, but doing nothing isn't an option. Statistics are tools. Statistics make sense of the vast amount of information in the world. Just like our eyes and ears filter out unnecessary stimuli just to give us the best, most useful stuff, statistics help us filter the loads of data that come at us every day. Descriptive statistics make the data we get more digestible, even though we lose information about individual data points. Inferential statistics can help us make decisions about data when there's uncertainty, like whether SmartyVite will actually increase your IQ. But statistics can't do all the work. They're here to help us reason, not to reason for us. They can help us see through uncertainty, but they don't get rid of that uncertainty. To push our tool analogy a step further, statistics like chainsaws are pretty useless, even dangerous, without understanding how they work. We need to know how to use them and how not to use them. As we'll see in later episodes, statistics done poorly can lead us to some pretty silly conclusions. And chainsawing done poorly leads to about 36,000 injuries in the US each year, 81% of which are lacerations. Did you know that almost no one dies because of chainsaw injuries? Once in a while, but it's very rare. 95% of the people who are hurt by chainsaws are male. This does not necessarily tell us that males are significantly worse chainsawers. Statistics can help us plan a vacation to Bali in December. They can help us optimize our chances of winning our fantasy football league. They can help us budget our meal card at college. Statistics can help us decide whether that additional insurance the guy at Best Buy is trying to sell us on our new blender is actually worth it. Statistics can also help us decide whether or not to go ahead with an invasive heart surgery. Statistics can help NGOs optimize the amount of food aid they send to refugee camps. They can help policymakers decide if they should spend more or less money on helping students pay back their school loans, and can help you decide how much money you should be comfortable borrowing for college in the first place. There's a lot statistics can help us with, but some things statistics can't do. Thinking statistically means knowing the difference. So when your brother says he used statistics to prove that your mom loves him more, you can rest easy, knowing the only question he answered is whether she gives him slightly more ice cream each night. And you've got data suggesting she gives you extra sprinkles. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Crash Course Statistics is filmed in the...
Okay, I hope I did not scare everyone. All right, so, ooh, my lighting really bad now. There you go. All right, so I'm really happy to teach this chapter on statistics because we are now in such a statistic important time in our world. I don't have ever been as involved in research at any other point in history as we are now. We are at the intersection of a pandemic, but we're also at the intersection of like an information revolution. And never before have we had so much access to research as it was happening on the ground. So it's super, super excites me to be able to go over this chapter with you guys. I am a part of the work that I do is in research. So I don't necessarily use I don't use this language as academically as the video did, but this is the work that I do every single day. And I assure you, there is great value and importance in being able to look at information and tell the stories about that. And that's essentially what statistics does. It gives you information, and based on what it is that you have, you can literally go from having charts and numbers to being able to tell stories and in the spirit of psychology, be able to make predictions or draw inferences about why things are happening or how they are happening and what are those indicators. And this is truly at the core of some of the work that I do. So super, super excited about this. Sorry, somebody had Daria couldn't make it to class. Okay. So I'm going to try and pull up this slide on statistics right now. Oh, while I'm waiting for that to come up, anybody, any questions about any of this so far, particularly on statistics, since this would be an introductory chapter? What is your comfort level? Because I know this is definitely one of those subjects that people like the least. What's our comfort
Will
level
we
with
be
statistics?
doing like F tests and ANOVA tables and all those yummy things?
None of it.
And
No,
I said that
none of it.
sarcastically.
None of it. I won't put you through that torture because again, this is a 100 level class. But we're just going to talk about statistics from a conceptual basis. So yeah, none of that stuff. All right,
Okay,
sharing
good.
screen. I got you. Because again, statistics from a theoretical perspective is incredibly daunting. But I promise you, last year, no, that was this year. Sorry, I'm losing track of time. This year, I was a part of the research team who completed an MSME, sorry. We looked at the impact of Hurricane Dorian and COVID-19 on medium, small, micro, small, and medium-sized businesses in Abaco and Grand Bahama. And literally from collecting data from what people had to say, we went from charts to being able to tell the story of like what people's experiences were. We were able to have indicators about like the economic impact. So being able to tell those stories based on numbers is it's really amazing. You feel incredibly powerful. So yeah, when you're in the academic side of it, it's kind of like when you're doing anything from a theoretical perspective, you're using a lot of the very technical language that you don't necessarily use when you're in the real life context. So statistics is much less fun when you're learning it theoretically, but when you are doing it in application, you feel so powerful based on the fact that you can collect this data and then you are now capable of telling stories and making predictions and drawing inferences and conclusions based on that. So I assure you, do not stray away from research based on like not having a love of statistics. It's way more than that. And most organizations have some sort of data processing machine that like takes that information and puts it in a format that you just become a storyteller from. So please don't let that scare any away. All right, so measurement and statistical measurement. So you guys went over different types of research, and one of the integral things to research is understanding sample. So under no circumstance when research is being conducted do they use an entire population. They never go to all of the people and ask them a question. Based on, there are often apps that can help you out with that, but based on the size of the overall population, you identify what your sample is going to be in order to conduct the research. So there are factors in there that they call like confidence level, and you estimate what those are going to be. So that means like how wrong or right you intend to be, give or take, that sort of thing. But you identify a sample, and that's just a fraction of the population that you're going to measure who are going to essentially represent the wider population. And when you conduct research, it is almost never with the assumption that you are 100% correct. There is a like I said, there's confidence sampling and there's a sampling interval. So even in this, you say, you identify that you're willing to be right or wrong. Typically that range is like -5 to +5. That interval is at the -5 or +5. So it's like give or take 5, this is going to be your answer. And that's based on the fraction of the population. And that's how it sounds. So again, I think this is really important for you guys to know now that we're in this world of like data collection, so that you completely understand that when people are saying like, this is the statistic, they are talking about, it's a matter of like probability based on the samples that have already gone out. So the group of people that they've tested, this has been the experience with them, and they are right or wrong to this degree. So there are very specific, there are a range of sampling methods. So random sampling is one of those, which is like, you just kind of like pick people who are there, or you just randomly select people to participate in a study. You have representative sampling. This is more specific because you want it to be very like demographic specific. If you are doing research on parents of students in public schools, right? And you send out a survey and it involves the entire Bahamas, that's not necessarily representative sampling because you don't know what ratio or fraction of those people actually have kids in public schools. So you will need to design your sampling to reflect the demographic that you're trying to reach specifically. All right, like we said, so again, there are lots of other sampling methods, including one called convenience sampling, and it's like whoever happens to be there at the time. Okay. I heard you. Right. So again, we talked about statistics. It is mathematically and visual, it's mathematically sorting data so that you can start telling stories, visual stories. So using the terms of like data and quantitative facts and qualitative facts, like that just sounds very cumbersome. But I want you to think of statistics as sorting mathematical, sorting data in a way that it starts to tell visual, that it starts to tell stories. All right, so you have different types of scales, you know, nominal scales, these are numbers, a way that you classify things. Ordinal, you know the difference between nominal and ordinal. That's the difference between like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 versus first, second, third, fourth. You have interval scales that have very specific distances between them. So those are kind of like relative. And then you have ratio scales, which is like the distribution between things, like 2 to 1. Like that's a sort of scale that you might be familiar with. Okay. We can go to more like critical thinking things. I just want to get through this lesson a little bit. All right, so central tendency. Central tendency is a term, but I want you to think of it conceptually as like your concept of what you know is like averaging. So it's when something clusters around a specific value or what you know as an average. That's what central tendency is. And in math, you learn that as mean, mode, median. So when you know something to be an average, the question is like, when you talk about an average score and you're talking about it as a mean, what it means is like the summary of all of the numbers divided by the number of representatives or that are there. That's how we get a mean. The median is the middle score. So when you sort these from like the lowest to the highest, what numbers are in the middle? That's your median. And then your mode is the one that appears the most. So if you took if you asked a number of businesses how long have they been open, the number of businesses that appears, the number of years that appears the most, that's your mode. So the one that is there or the one with the highest frequency is your mode. So that's what central tendency is. It's just another term for average. So distribution is kind of hard to discuss without being able to show you curves. So you have like a normal curve of distribution, which is like typically like a bell curve. It just goes up, down. Then you have skewed where something is like slightly more on one side or the other. And bimodal just means like there's different repetitions of patterns involved in there. All right, so measures of variation, looking at the term range. So the simplest measure of variation is the difference between the largest and the smallest measure. It's simple. So you've heard of standard deviation. So let's look at that as class. You all took a test. The difference, the variation, let's say there are 23 of you here. The difference between the lowest score, let's say the lowest score is 75%. Look how, you see how positive I'm thinking about that? The lowest score is 75%, the highest score is 100%. What is the difference between 75 and 100? 25. So that's going to be essentially your range. So standard deviation is how these scores are actually dispersed around the mean. So what's the mean? What's the average of 75 and 100? That is, I could say 90, but I don't think that's right. 25, 83. So
87.5.
87.5?
Yes.
If we were making this into a chart, can I draw? Am I able to draw right now? Sorry, go back. Oh, I just want you to either visualize this or I want you to attempt to draw this for yourself. So we have draw a line to your basic X. You have 75 on one side, you have 100 on the other side, and in the very middle, we have 87.5. Literally, your range is going to be, you kind of like start at the bottom at 75, 87.5 is going to be the top of your curve, and then 100, you're going to go back down. So that's kind of like how the range of standard deviation is. And so when you have a line in the middle, literally the difference between your median and your bottom score, your median and your top score is essentially what is considered your standard deviation. All right. I'm summarizing this in a way because I don't want you to think about it like too complicatedly. All right, correlation. Now, I love the concept of correlation very much, and because it's also a term that we use so frequently and often incorrectly. There is a difference between a correlation. There's a difference between correlation and causation, and sometimes things are also incredibly coincidental. So we heard. I'm trying to come up with a statistic that you may have heard. So, and I don't want to make it daunting. So remember when the doctor was talking about in the previous session, they were talking about full moons and making people crazy, all right? Sometimes people identify relationships between events because they happen at the same time, all right? That's called essentially when something is statistically relevant between two events, that's considered, a correlation. So it's the strength of the association between the two variables. And two variables are just like the factors that are involved in a concept. Sometimes things can happen coincidentally and still not be related to each other. All right. So if one event causes two things to happen in the same direction, so full moon happens, every time there is a full moon, crime goes up, that's considered a positive correlation, all right? Every time the full moon comes, crime goes down, that's considered a negative correlation. And then sometimes there's no relationship between the events at all. Is that clear? Simplified version of a lot of these concepts. Excellent. Oh, we're essentially at the end of this unit where we're talking about, again, I talked about standard deviation and looking at that bell curve. So what I'm going to do a solid and actually show you just a little bit of data that I do have, and we can talk about it. We can talk about the data that does exist, and you tell me your thoughts on it. What shall I pull up? The thing that I have really quickly. Okay. So I'm going to show you a graph based on some research that I recently did with a group of students. I'm going to share my screen in a second. Where's the reports? Give me 1 second to find the document. I want to show you the beauty of statistics. I'm so rude. There we go. Okay. Okay. So do you see how incredibly boring this bit of data is? It's literally people responding to this survey. sorry, I didn't, this is how I wanted to show it to you. So this is the data from this survey. These are the exact same thing. I didn't want you to see that part. So these are responses, literally, where you see zeros, they did not put an answer. Where you see ones, they did put an answer. Do you see how incredibly boring that information is? So we summarized this data and presented it the same information, but presented in charts. Yeah, what is the group? So you have different age groups under 60 plus 24 59 as the high. I have no idea what happened. I'm very sorry. Sorry, going back to sharing my screen. Okay, so like I said, there are multiple groups, age groups here. Which group has the highest mode or the greatest frequency?
It's really small, I can't really see it, but I think it's the one up top.
Right, it's the one at the very top, and it's 41, the age group 41 to 59. So do you see how this chart is able to tell that story? This group of people responded the most to the survey, right? Again, let me try and make it bigger. Is that better?
Much better.
Yeah, that's better.
Who responded to the survey the most? What gender
Female.
identity? Female.
Female 7.
Okay, so this group of people were responding to, this was a community efficacy survey. And so what we were trying to figure out is like how people understood how their neighbors responded to them. So they said, the question was like, if children were, how would your neighbors respond? Like, would people in your neighborhood respond if this thing happened? And the question is like, if children were skipping school and hanging out on a street corner. So I want you to look at this and tell me what story this is attempting to tell. So, sorry, if they put 1 or 2, it said that people are likely to respond. If they put 3 or 4, it said people were unlikely to respond. And if they put 5, they just had absolutely no idea. So based on that, people think their neighbors would do? Or do you
They
think
were
people
likely to respond based on that?
Again, this was just a survey that we collected. We sent out this information, but based on this, we can say that people think that their neighbors are very likely to respond if they saw children hanging out on a corner. So we looked at that question. Let's look at another one. Okay, the response is the same. 1, 2, likely to respond. 3, 4, unlikely to respond. 5 means they have no idea. People were spray painting graffiti on an, yeah.
The 1 to 5, that's the Likert scale, or is it just like some type of coding?
This was a general Likert scale. So one was absolutely agree. 2 was agree. 3 was absolutely disagree. 4 was disagree, and then 5 was I don't know. So yeah, it was a Likert scale. Okay. People were spraying graffiti on a local building. What does this tell us about these people? What they think about their neighbors?
I think the majority of their community would respond to that.
Scroll to another kind of question. All right, look at this one. If a fight broke out within your neighbor's household, how likely would your neighbors respond? Remember, 1 and 2 would be they would respond. 3 and 4, they are not going to respond. And 5 is I have no idea.
They're likely to respond.
Look at the numbers.
I think they would be like in between, like the majority felt like most of them wouldn't, but then a few thought that maybe they may intervene.
So the numbers between will respond and won't respond, they get a little bit closer to each other because they will respond is about 44%, and they won't respond is closer to about, practically 26, 36, about 43%. So they're about 43%. They're like 43% of them say that my neighbors will respond. 43 say my neighbors won't respond. So what can you use this data to tell you about the neighbors? So when children were writing graffiti on the walls, or if a fire broke out, how would they if children were skipping school, or if people were writing graffiti on the walls, versus if a fight broke out in your neighbor's house? What kind of things can you kind of like indicate about this neighborhood or how a person perceives their neighborhood?
I think if it's too personal, they tend to be a little bit more, standoffish or a little taken aback, versus if it's something that is affecting the general community, they're more likely to get involved.
And this is why we need statistics. So from this information, we were able to gather people's perceptions of their neighbors, but moreover, we're able to kind of like make inferences about the types of things people do under certain sets of circumstances, because you were able to distinguish between like children not going to school or people putting graffiti on the walls. That seems more wider, something that's wider and more general and more community oriented. Whereas like if a fight breaks out in your neighbor's house, that seems more personal and intimate, and people are less likely to respond to something that's like less of quote unquote their business. So that's what I want you to think about when you start thinking about statistics. You get to kind of tell these kinds of stories, all right? So next class, we're gonna get back here. We're gonna talk a little bit more about statistics, and then I'm gonna have us kind of like pivot our way into what's going to be chapter 5. So you're actually going to read, not chapter 2, I'm gonna have you read chapter 5, which is about learning. The psychology of learning. You're going to look at the different strategies that are actually employed that intersect the concept of learning or education and psychology. So next class for Wednesday, I want you to read ahead to chapter 5 because we're going to go through the lecture, and you're also going to have a class activity that's based on that. Got it?
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question.
Sure.
The slides, are they in our Google Drive? Because I don't see them.
In your Google Drive, part of that is the slides that I do have are not allowed to be shared just yet because they are the new ones. What I will try and do is see if I can find the old chapter ones, like the old lecture slides, but these ones are like contractually copywritten at this point, and so we're not allowed to have them shared publicly. The best I will do is like be able to record the lesson and put it like as a part of the video, but being able to share the slides individually is not something that I'm able to do, not with these slides, but specifically. All right.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. All right, chapter 5, whatever resources I can find, like on the older chapters, I will go ahead and share them with you. I put the link to the slide in the chat. It's going to be on your Moodle. So look for that by tomorrow. The Moodle should be updated with this static thing, and any resources that I have for you, I will go ahead and put there, but I will do my very, very best to be able to find the old lecture notes that are in fact shareable at this point. All right, thank you guys so much for a really good first class. And if you have any questions, go ahead and email me, and I will see you guys on Wednesday.
All right, have a good night.
Good night.
Good night.